and welcome to Diabetes Connections in the News. I'm Stacey Sims, and every other Friday, I bring you a short episode with the top diabetes stories and headlines happening now. Our top story this week, more information coming out about that FDA letter to Dexcom. We told you about this a couple of weeks ago when the Food and Drug Administration revealed quality control issues with Dexcom's CGMs. Turns out they are concerned with a design change to a component used in the resistance layer of Dexcom sensors. The sensors with the new component were less accurate than those with the original component, according to the warning letter. Now, Dexcom says they have stopped distribution of all G7 sensors with the component. Their response did not address any affected G6 sensors. This has to do with a chemical compound the sensor wire is dipped in. Dexcom Chief Operating Officer Jake Leach said in an interview with MedTech Dive that there is no need yet to recall products. Lots of studies and information out of the recent ATTD conference. One highlight that has been sort of under the radar, a Dutch company has been using a bihormonal, fully closed loop system for the treatment of type 1 in the real world. This is a company called Inreda. The Inreda AP has the ability to administer insulin and glucagon. The AP5 model is certified in Europe and is being used in multiple studies and projects right now. The AP6 is currently under development. You should take a look at this. I will link up this and every article I talk about here in the show notes. It basically looks like a regular but larger insulin pump and has two connections to the body, one for the insulin and one for the glucagon. The AP6, the next model, looks a little smaller, but still has those two different infusion sets. Let's talk about time in tight range. If you follow me and Diabetes Connections on social, you likely saw a video I made about this, which really blew up last week. All right, so here's what I was talking about. Time in range has been a metric for a short while now. In 2019, there was a consensus report advising a goal of 70% of time in the 70 to 180 range for most people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Recently, we've been hearing more about 70 to 140 time in tight range. And at ATTD, there was more talk about calling that TING, or time in normal glycemia. There is a great write-up that I'm going to link up from Miriam Tucker on Medscape about a debate that happened at ATTD. One endocrinologist saying the time has come to switch to this metric, the other saying it is way too soon. Sequel MedTech announces its Twist pump will be first paired with Abbott's Freestyle Libre 3 Plus. The Twist has FDA approval for ages 6 and up. It's set to begin its commercial launch by the end of June. The pump also incorporates Tidepool Loop's automated insulin delivery system software. Dexcom talks about its longer-lasting CGM sensor at ATTD, showing that it is slightly more accurate than the current G7. The 15-day model has a MARD of 8. That's about the same as the Abbott Freestyle Libre 3. The G7 15-day is awaiting FDA approval. You can't get it yet. Little bit of news from Modular Medical. They plan to submit their patch pump to the FDA late summer or fall of this year. The Mod D1 product is a 90-day patch pump. They got FDA clearance for Mod D1 in September. The company's founder is actually the founder of Tandem Diabetes Care. More from ATTD in the show notes. I've got links to some wrap-up articles of other studies presented at this conference. Another study says that people with type 1 who use a GLP-1 medication get better outcomes. In this study, those who use GLP-1s with insulin are 55% less likely to have a hyperglycemic-related emergency room visit, 26% less likely to have an amputation-related visit, and 29% less likely to have a DKA-related visit in the following year compared to those on insulin alone. Now, these drugs are not approved for type 1, but many patients receive them off-label or for weight control. Interesting, in this study, they note that the rate of new diabetic complications in a year for both groups were around 1%, indicating these are uncommon outcomes regardless of medication use. Early research here, but exposure to antibiotics during a key developmental window in infancy may stunt the growth of insulin-producing cells in the pancreas and boost risk of diabetes later in life. This study is in the journal Science. It is a study in mice, but these researchers are working off the idea that while identical twins share DNA, but often only one twin gets type 1 diabetes. The researchers say that sometime in a baby's first year, a once-in-a-lifetime surge in beta cell growth occurs. If this doesn't happen, it could be a cause of diabetes. And they found that when they gave broad-spectrum antibiotics to mice during the human equivalent of about 7 to 12 months of life, the mice developed fewer insulin-producing cells, higher blood sugar levels, and worse metabolic function in adulthood. In other experiments, they did the opposite. They gave microbes to mice and found that several increased their production of beta cells and boosted insulin levels. So these researchers say they are not anti-antibiotics, but they are hoping that research could lead to a day when doctors could give supplements or other microbe-based drugs alongside antibiotics. Long way to go here, but really interesting stuff. Future watch for something called Beagle, created by researchers at UC Davis, inspired by their own personal experience with type 1. Beagle is software designed to work with CGMs and security-focused machine learning algorithms to make predictive alerts about anticipated glucose changes, which are sent to your watch. The end goal is for Beagle to be completely automated to reduce cognitive load on patients, particularly teens. Still very much in the research phase, but 6 students with type 1 have been using it for almost a year. Investigators are searching for a way forward after 2 long-term diabetes programs were terminated following cancellation of their National Institutes of Health funding. The programs include the 3-decades-old Diabetes Prevention Program and its offshoot, the Diabetes Prevention Program Outcomes Study. We are reeling, says the previous chair. This is the result of federal allegations that the study coordinator, Columbia University, had inappropriately handled anti-Semitism on campus. The Trump administration this month canceled $400 million in awards to Columbia University. Now, Columbia did agree just a couple of days ago to changes in policies and procedures to respond to the Trump administration, but as of now, the study is still canceled. And finally, eating chili once a month when you're pregnant seems to lower the risk of developing gestational diabetes. This is a real study. While chili showed a link to lower risk, dried beans and bean soup had no significant effect. Now, some studies suggest that diets high in beans and legumes, including the Mediterranean diet, reduce gestational diabetes risk. Not a lot of information out there about chili. The researchers think maybe it's capsaicin, a compound found in chili peppers. The study authors agree further research is needed. And that is it for In the News. If you like what you heard, please share it and learn more about all of these studies by going to diabetes-connections.com and clicking on this episode's homepage. We'll be back in your feed in just a couple of days with our regular Tuesday interview episodes. We drop those every week, and the news is every other Friday. I'm Stacey Sims. I'll see you back here soon. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.